Hi guys, in this lesson we'll be talking about dynamic array. The question is there something called static array? Yes. So far whatever the array we discussed, generally when you declare it, we really fix the size and we really specify the size of the array like this. Okay. So when we fix this, we cannot change the size now. Clear? Therefore, we may come across two situations. Either my allocated space may be insufficient if I want to add more number of integers. And the second situation is that sometimes we are only using 60 or 70 or so number of integers. That does mean that the reserved space is being underutilized. Clear? So to handle such situation, we can opt for dynamic array. So in other words, such situation can be handled by manually allocating memory at runtime. This is known as dynamic memory allocation. Clear? If we consider one example, let's process the list of customers of a company. The list may grow when we add some number of customers. The list may grow when we add some new number of customers, and the list may shrink when some customers are deleted. To support such kind of dynamism, we are now going to create one dynamic array. And we'll be exploring what are the provisions in C language to create such an array. Okay. So these following functions are used for dynamic memory allocation, and when you use these functions, we have to include the standard library file, and this is stdlib.h. This header file need to be included in our program when you use these functions. Okay. Let's discuss about these functions and the syntax one by one. Let's consider malloc first. Okay, malloc is a function that reserves a memory space for a block and it returns a pointer. Okay, so for example, we have a pointer like this. Then malloc will take the form like this. Okay. This is the syntax of malloc function, and this is size of the data byte. Okay. For example, if I want to create 100 integers, an array of 100 integers, then we can declare the statement like this: integer star malloc 100 into size of integer. Okay, so this does mean that we create a block of 100 integers, and this is a block of 100 integers, and the p is pointing to the very first element. By incrementing p by 1, I can point to the next element, and so on. Now we'll be talking about the syntax and the usage of calloc function. Okay, the calloc function is different from malloc in two ways. First, it allocates multiple blocks of memory space. Okay, whereas malloc allocates only a single. And here in calloc, all multiple blocks of storage have equal size. Okay, and the second point is that it sets all bytes to 0. and the syntax is, again, it returns a pointer of the memory block it creates, and the pointer block, the pointer points to the very first block. Okay. The syntax goes like this: ptr, and let's consider that we want to have a structure of this, and each structure has 3 members. So we can write like struct student, then calloc. If I want to have 30, then we can write 30, then size of struct student. Okay, this is the syntax. That does mean that here the calloc function creates 30 blocks, okay, each of equal size, and each block consists of 3 members. Okay. Then we'll be talking about another function called free. Okay. This is calloc. So far we have discussed 2 functions, malloc and calloc. Free is a function, and free takes the ptr as the parameter. And what is the purpose of this this tree function? It really releases those memory space or those blocks of memory which is created by either calloc or malloc function. Okay, this is what the beauty of dynamic memory allocation. Whenever you do not need the reserved space, we may release that. Okay, so this is the function to achieve that objective. Now we'll be talking about the function realloc. So what is the purpose of this reallocation? Suppose you have a previously allocated memory space and we want to add something more. Okay, then we can resize the previously allocated memory space. Or a second case is that sometimes we have a memory space but it is larger than the necessity, then we want to reduce it. So for both the purposes we can use reallocation function. Now what is the syntax? The syntax goes like this. Okay, then it has 2 parameters. One is the pointer and the other parameter is new size. Okay, what is this pointer? This pointer is the pointer of previously allocated memory space. So if we previously created a memory block of 10 integers, let's say using malloc, then there is of course a pointer pointing to the 0th element. Okay, so this is the memory space created by malloc. Now if I want to resize this, then in this I can write pointer and the new size could be either greater than 10 or less than 10. Okay, it could be increased or decreased. Suppose I want to increase it to 15, then it looks like this. There are memory bytes meant for 0 to 14 index, and the pointer is of course pointing to the 0th element. Alternatively, you can decrease the new size also. If it is previously allocated memory space is 10, you can put it 8, 9 or 7 and so on. So this is how we create a dynamic memory. This is how we created the dynamic arrays using the provisions of C language called the malloc, calloc, realloc and free functions. Then we'll be discussing one example implementing all these functions. Let's have one example to find the sum of n numbers, and we are going to write a program to implement all the functions that we have been discussing. Okay, let's have a dynamic array. If I write like this, integer num10, then it's a concept of static array. Okay, and this concept we are not going to use. So let's not use this statement. Okay, so to have the dynamic array, we have to have the program construct like this, where we have to declare one pointer first. Okay, because this pointer is going to point to the new memory block to be created to store an array. Okay, and here I can dynamically take the number of integers I want to have in my array. Okay, so this will be decided dynamically at runtime. Now using malloc function, I can create one memory block, and the function returns one pointer which is stored in P. Okay, so how many number of memory bytes I can have, that decided by n. So this creates one array of size n, and this n is going to be decided at runtime. That's how the dynamic array is different from static array. Clear? At this point of time, now we can use one for loop to fill up the array. Okay, we can use a scanf statement now to take the elements from the keyboard. Okay, it's understood why I'm writing this. See, these parameters should be the address parameter. For example, like this, address of n need to be passed in scanf function, and here this is the address of the 0th element. Whenever I equal to 0, whenever I equal to 1, it will be the address of the first element, and so on. Okay, now what to write? Let's say I want to find out the sum of the series. So the variable meant for sum need to be declared. So we can declare integer s equal to 0. We need to declare these variables also, integer I and n. Okay, you should not forget to mention any of the variables that we are going to use in the program. Now using a for loop, I can find out the sum. Okay, so this is the sequence of execution of my statements. Okay, after this for loop, taking all the elements of the array, now I can process all the elements by writing sum equal to sum plus the content in the ptr plus I address, that is the 0th element. Then I can access first element by making I equal to 1, and so on. So the for loop takes care of incrementing I in every iteration, and we can find out the sum. And finally we can print the sum. Okay, so this is how we created one dynamic array and find out the sum of the elements of that array. Okay, now you can use the free function to free the pointer so that the memory held by this array has been released for future use or for the use of some other processes going on in the system. Okay, this is how we completed the program. This is the end of the program. Okay, now there is a question that how to make use of calloc function. Okay, so you can replace this statement with a calloc function. Okay, the calloc function can be used here. Okay, so far we have discussed how to use malloc function. Now you can make the use of calloc function by replacing this statement. Okay, and we also discussed about free function. Now the question is where to use reallocation. Okay, so let's say we are finding out the sum of the series of n numbers in the array, and I want to increase the number of n at some point of time. Clear? So here I can increase. Okay, here I can change the value of n to n1. Okay, and by using reallocation function I can pass the pointer and n1. Now the elements from n plus 1 to n1 can be processed to find the rest of the sum. So this is how we created the dynamic array to find out the sum of n numbers. And here I committed one mistake. It should be the variable sum, okay, because the same variable is being used here. So with this I would like to conclude that we have the provisions in C language to create dynamic arrays using malloc, calloc, realloc and free functions. Thank you.